Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something so fundamental it powers every living thing, yet it's surprisingly intricate: how animals, including us, get the fuel and building blocks they need to survive. We're talking about animal nutrition, and for this dive, we're extracting the core insights from Chapter 33 of Campbell Biology in Focus.
Yeah, it's really so much more than, just what's on your plate. It's this incredibly sophisticated four-stage biological marvel: ingestion, digestion, absorption, and finally, elimination. Our mission today is kind of to cut through the complexity, unveil the incredible diversity in how animals do this, and reveal the ingenious biological solutions that keep our bodies and countless other creatures mastering this vital balancing act. You're basically about to get a shortcut to being truly well-informed about the astonishing biology behind every single meal.
Absolutely. We'll explore the essential needs food fulfills, the clever ways different animals process their meals, and those intricate feedback systems that keep us balanced and thriving. So let's unpack this. First, let's get to the core of why animals eat. It's not just about raw energy, right? Though that's certainly a huge piece of the puzzle.
Precisely. Yeah, energy's big, but an adequate diet fulfills three truly fundamental needs for any animal. The first is chemical energy. This is the pure fuel for, well, everything. All cellular processes, from replicating your DNA to vision, even powering flight. Animals ingest carbs, proteins, lipids.
Right.
And those get funneled into cellular respiration to make ATP. ATP is like the cell's universal energy currency. Think of it as the power button for every biological process. The second need, that's for organic building blocks. These are the raw materials for biosynthesis, for growth, for the constant maintenance your body performs, and for reproduction. Animals need sources of organic carbon, like sugars, and organic nitrogen, like from proteins, to build all the complex molecules they need.
And the third, equally vital, you mentioned, are essential nutrients. So these are things the body absolutely needs, but just can't make itself.
Exactly. Cannot synthesize them internally from simpler stuff. Our bodies just aren't wired for it, so they must come from our diet.
Okay, what kind of things fall into that category?
We're talking about four main types. First, essential amino acids. All organisms need 20 amino acids to build proteins. Humans, we can synthesize about half, but 8 of them, like tryptophan or lysine, must come directly from our food, prefabricated.
Got it. 8 we have to eat.
Yep. Second, essential fatty acids. Again, animals can't synthesize these, but plants often can. They're crucial for cell membranes, signaling molecules, think linoleic acid. You get plenty from seeds, grains, vegetables usually, vital for healthy skin, things like that.
Then there are vitamins. I know they're super important, but they're needed in such tiny amounts, right?
Yeah.
What makes them essential?
Yeah, vitamins are organic molecules needed in surprisingly minute quantities, sometimes less than a milligram a day. Humans require 13. Some are water-soluble, like vitamin C, crucial for connective tissue, or the B vitamins, which act as coenzymes like little helpers in metabolic reactions.
Okay.
Others are fat-soluble, A, D, E, and K. And what's fascinating about vitamin D is your body can actually synthesize it with sunlight exposure,
Right.
which reduces your dietary need, but that also highlights a caution. Because they're fat-soluble, these vitamins can build up in your body fat. Too much can actually become toxic.
Interesting balance. And finally, what about minerals?
Minerals are inorganic nutrients. Things like iron, essential for hemoglobin carrying oxygen, or sodium and potassium, critical for nerves and muscles. Calcium and phosphorus, of course, build bone. But just like vitamins, balance is key. Too much sodium, for instance, which is really common in the American diet, way more than needed, can impair health.
So, okay, these are all critical. What happens if these needs aren't met? What goes wrong?
Well, that leads to malnutrition. It's a huge global challenge, affecting maybe a quarter of children worldwide. Deficiencies in specific essential nutrients can cause severe problems. Lack of vitamin A, for example, can lead to blindness. That actually spurred the development of golden rice.
Ah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's genetically engineered to produce beta-carotene, which our bodies convert to vitamin A. It shows how targeted biological solutions can potentially tackle these widespread nutritional issues. And beyond specific deficiencies, there's undernourishment, which is just a lack of sufficient chemical energy overall. The body, trying to survive, first burns through stored carbs and fat. Then it starts breaking down its own proteins. Muscles shrink, even brain protein can be affected. This can cause irreversible damage. tragically common in crisis areas, but it also occurs, in well-fed populations due to eating disorders like anorexia.
Gus, okay, so now that we understand why animals eat, let's dive into the how. Those 4 ingenious stages of food processing you mentioned.
Right. The whole journey kicks off with ingestion, simply the act of eating or feeding. And what's remarkable is just the sheer diversity of strategies. You've got suspension feeders like flamingos filtering tiny bits from water, or fluid feeders like hummingbirds sipping nectar.
Like mosquitoes too, right? Less pleasant example.
Yes, definitely less pleasant. But most animals, including you and me, are bulk feeders. We eat relatively large pieces of food. Think of a python swallowing a whole gazelle that's bulk feeding.
Wow. Okay, so once the food is in, the next big step is digestion. This is the breakdown part.
Absolutely. And digestion involves both mechanical and chemical processes. Mechanical digestion, like chewing, physically breaks food into smaller pieces. Why? It vastly increases the surface area for enzymes to work on. Then, chemical digestion uses specialized enzymes. The process is called enzymatic hydrolysis, literally splitting with water to break down large molecules. Proteins become amino acids, complex carbs turn into simple sugars, fats get broken into fatty acids.
And why is that breakdown so crucial?
Because the large molecules in food are just too big to pass through cell membranes. Plus, they aren't necessarily the exact molecules the animal needs to build its own unique tissues and structures. So, break down first, then rebuild.
Makes sense. So after all that breakdown, these tiny molecules are freed up. What's next?
Then comes absorption. This is where your cells actually take up those small digested molecules, usually into the bloodstream or the lymphatic system. And finally, the last step is elimination. Any undigested material gets passed out of the body as waste. Ingestion, digestion, absorption, elimination, the sequence.
Okay, but it brings up an important question.
Yeah.
If those digestive enzymes are powerful enough to break down, say, a steak, how do animals avoid digesting their own tissues, their own stomach lining, for instance?
Great question. That's where specialized digestive compartments come in. Evolution's clever solution. Simpler animals, like sponges, might use intracellular digestion. They engulf food particles, and digestion happens safely inside food vacuoles within individual cells. But most animals, including us, rely on extracellular digestion. Food is broken down in compartments that are actually continuous with the outside of the body. Think of your digestive tract as a tube running through you.
Okay, so it's technically outside the body's tissues.
In a way, yes. This allows for eating much larger food items. Simpler animals like Hydra have a gastrovascular cavity 1 opening serves as both mouth and anus. But more complex animals like us have a complete digestive tract or alimentary canal, a tube with 2 openings, a mouth and an anus. This allows for sequential processing. You can be digesting one meal while starting the next, much more efficient.
Let's trace a meal through the human body then, as our prime example of an alimentary canal. Where does this incredible journey begin?
Right in the oral cavity, your mouth. Teeth start the mechanical breakdown, crushing and grinding, increasing that surface area. But saliva is really ingenious stuff. It's not just water. It lubricates food with mucus, contains salivary amylase to start breaking down starches, and even has antimicrobial compounds to protect your gums. It's doing a lot right from the start.
Then your tongue shapes the food into a ball, right, a bolus.
Exactly. Shapes it into a bolus and pushes it back to the pharynx or throat. This is a critical junction, leading to both the esophagus, food tube, and the trachea, windpipe. Precision is key here.
Yeah, you don't want food going down the wrong pipe.
Definitely not. Swallowing is this incredibly choreographed reflex. A flap of cartilage, the epiglottis, covers the windpipe opening, ensuring the bolus goes safely down the esophagus. A failure there leads to choking. Once in the esophagus, rhythmic waves of muscle contraction called peristalsis push the food down towards the stomach through a sphincter valve.
And then the stomach.
Yeah.
What are its main jobs once that bolus arrives?
The stomach acts like a J-shaped bag with 2 major roles. 1, it's an elastic storage organ. It can stretch to hold about 2 liters of food and drink. 2, it's a processing plant. It churns the food, mixing it with highly acidic gastric juice. This mixture becomes a liquid suspension called chyme. Gastric juice has a pH around 2 that's incredibly acidic, strong enough to dissolve iron nails.
Wow, what does that acid do?
It denatures proteins, meaning it unfolds them, making them easier for enzymes to attack, and it kills most bacteria that you swallow with your food. Crucially, the acid also activates pepsin. Pepsin is the main protein-digesting enzyme in the stomach. It starts as an inactive form, pepsinogen, and the acid converts it to active pepsin.
So back to the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Why doesn't the stomach digest itself with all that acid and active pepsin sloshing around?
Right. It protects itself in a few ways. There's a thick coating of mucus secreted by cells lining the stomach. And the epithelial cells themselves, the lining cells, are replaced very rapidly about every 3 days. But this protection isn't perfect. The bacterium Helicobacter pylori can sometimes breach these defenses and cause gastric ulcers.
Ah, I remember hearing about that discovery, that ulcers weren't just stress, but an infection.
Exactly. Marshall and Warren won a Nobel Prize for showing ulcers could often be cured with antibiotics. A huge shift in understanding. So the stomach churns this chyme, mixing it all up, and then gradually releases it, little by little, over 2 to 6 hours into the next section.
Which is the small intestine. Despite the name, it's actually really long, isn't it?
Oh, incredibly long, over 6 meters or 20 feet in humans. And this is where the real action happens. Most enzymatic digestion and virtually all nutrient absorption occurs here.
So it's not just long, it must be specialized for all that work.
Hugely specialized. The first section, the duodenum, is like a chemical receiving station. The acidic pine comes in from the stomach and gets mixed with digestive juices from 3 sources: the pancreas, the liver, and the gallbladder, plus the intestinal wall itself. The pancreas sends in bicarbonate to neutralize the stomach acid. Crucial step. It also provides a whole cocktail of powerful enzymes, trypsin and chymotrypsin for proteins, others for carbs and fats.
Okay, but what about fats? They don't mix well with the watery chyme.
Excellent point. Fats pose a challenge. That's where bile salts come in. Bile is made in the liver and stored in the gallbladder. Bile salts act like detergents. They emulsify fats, break large fat globules into much smaller droplets. This hugely increases the surface area available for fat-digesting enzymes called lipases to work. It's essential for efficient fat digestion.
Makes sense, like dish soap breaking up grease.
Exactly like that. So once digestion is largely complete in the duodenum and early part of the small intestine, where do all these newly broken down nutrients actually go?
Into the body.
Ah.
Yes, into the body via absorption. This happens mainly in the rest of the small intestine, the jejunum and ileum. And the lining here is just spectacularly adapted for absorption. It has large folds. On those folds are finger-like projections called villi. And on the surface of each cell making up a villus are even tinier projections called microvilli.
Folds upon folds upon folds.
Precisely. All these structures together, folds, villi, microvilli, can create an absolutely enormous surface area. We're talking 200 to 300 square meters.
Wow, that's like a tennis court. Inside your gut. Isn't it amazing? This massive surface area maximizes the rate of nutrient absorption. Water-soluble nutrients like amino acids and simple sugars pass through the epithelial cells and enter tiny blood capillaries within the villi. This nutrient-rich blood then flows directly to the liver via the hepatic portal vein. The liver acts like a processing center and gatekeeper, modifying and regulating the nutrient load before it goes to the rest of the body.
What about fats? Do they go to the liver too?
Fats take a different route initially. After being broken down and absorbed, fatty acids and monoglycerides are reassembled into triglycerides inside the epithelial cells. These triglycerides are then packaged into water-soluble particles called chylomicrons. These are too large to enter the blood capillaries directly. Instead, they enter tiny lymphatic vessels called lacteals within the villi. The lymphatic system eventually carries them to large veins near the heart, where they finally enter the bloodstream. The small intestine also reabsorbs a huge amount of water, maybe 9 liters a day, mostly by osmosis following the absorption of salts and nutrients.
Yeah. Incredible efficiency. Okay, so what's left eventually arrives at the large intestine. What's its main job?
The large intestine includes the colon, cecum, and rectum. Its primary role is to complete water recovery that began in the small intestine. As water is absorbed, the remaining undigested material becomes more solid, forming feces. Cellulose fiber, which humans can't digest, helps move things along. It's bulk. Imbalances here can lead to diarrhea or constipation.
And isn't the large intestine also home to a lot of bacteria?
Oh, absolutely. A staggering amount. Your colon is home to somewhere between 10 and 100 trillion bacteria. This is the gut microbiome we hear so much about. These bacteria actually contribute about 1/3 of the dry weight of feces and produce gases like methane and hydrogen sulfide. Some also synthesize important vitamins like vitamin K. The final section, the rectum, stores feces before elimination through the anus, a process controlled by 2 sphincters.
It's incredible how varied animal diets are, from leaves to meat to nectar. So what does evolution tell us about how these digestive systems adapt to such different foods?
Oh, there are so many fantastic examples of form-fits function here, especially linked to diet. Just look at teeth dental adaptations. A carnivore, like a dog or cat, has sharp, pointed incisors and canines for killing prey and tearing meat, and jagged molars for shredding it. An herbivore, like a horse or cow, has broad, ridged molars and premolars, perfect for grinding tough plant material. The incisors are often adapted for clipping vegetation.
And omnivores like us.
We have a mix. Blade-like incisors for biting, pointed canines for tearing, flatter premolars for grinding, and molars for crushing. Our teeth reflect our evolutionary history of eating a wide variety of foods. We're truly adapted for versatility.
That makes sense. How about the internal organs? Do they show adaptations too?
Definitely. Take stomach adaptations. Many carnivores have large, expandable stomachs. Think about that python again. It allows them to gorge when prey is available, maybe infrequently. They can eat a huge meal and then digest it slowly. And intestinal length is another big one. Herbivores and omnivores generally have much longer alimentary canals relative to their body size compared to carnivores.
Why is that?
Because plant matter, especially with all that cellulose in the cell walls, is much tougher and takes longer to digest. A longer tract provides more time and more surface area for digestion and nutrient absorption. Think of a koala. Living entirely on fibrous eucalyptus leaves, they have incredibly long intestines.
And what about that hidden world within our guts, the microbiome you mentioned? How does that fit into this evolutionary adaptation story?
The microbiome, all of those microorganisms living in and on us, is a massive area of mutualistic adaptation. It's a huge frontier in biology right now. In your digestive system alone, those 10 to 100 trillion bacteria are mostly living in a mutually beneficial relationship with you.
What do we get out of it?
Well, they produce some essential vitamins for us, like vitamin K and some B vitamins like biotin and folic acid. They also play a really important role in regulating the development and function of our intestinal lining and even our innate immune system. In return, of course, they get a steady supply of nutrients and a stable environment to live in.
That's astonishing. It's like a whole other organ system made of microbes.
It truly is, and we're just beginning to understand its complexity. DNA sequencing has revealed over 400 bacterial species just in the human gut, far more than we could culture previously. And we now know the microbiome significantly impacts so many aspects of our health. Obesity, nutritional status, risk of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, inflammatory diseases, even things like brain function and mood seem to be influenced. Consider H. pylori. We mentioned it causes ulcers, but its presence can also dramatically alter the entire stomach microbiome, sometimes nearly eliminating other bacterial species. It's complex interplay.
And there are over 100 times more genes in our microbiome than in our own human genome.
That's right. It's a staggering amount of genetic potential interacting with our biology. It's why it's such an exciting area for potential new discoveries in health and disease treatment.
And it's not just humans benefiting from these microbial partnerships, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned herbivores.
Correct. Many herbivores simply lack the enzymes needed to break down cellulose, the main component of plant cell walls. So how do they get energy from grass or leaves? They host huge populations of mutualistic bacteria and protists in specialized fermentation chambers within their alimentary canals. These microbes do have the enzymes to break down cellulose into simpler sugars and other compounds the animal can then absorb. These microbes often produce essential vitamins and amino acids for the host animal, too.
Where are these fermentation chambers usually located?
Depends on the animal. Animals like horses, koalas, and elephants house these microbes mainly in a large cecum, which is a pouch connected to the junction of the small and large intestines. Some animals, like rabbits and some rodents, practice coprophagy. They actually eat some of their own fecal pellets.
They eat their poop.
Why? Sounds gross, but it's clever. Fermentation in the cecum happens after the small intestine, where most absorption occurs. So by re-ingesting the fecal matter, they get a second chance to absorb the nutrients released by microbial action in the cecum. But perhaps the most elaborate adaptation is in ruminants, animals like cows, sheep, and deer. They have incredibly complex multi-chambered stomachs, usually 4 chambers: the rumen, reticulum, omasum, and abomissum. The rumen and reticulum host enormous microbial populations that break down cellulose. They also periodically regurgitate partially digested food, the cud, and chew it further to increase surface area, then swallow it again. This cud chewing maximizes the efficiency of microbial digestion.
Wow, evolution has come up with some really intricate solutions. Okay, so with all this complexity, different foods, specialized organs, microbes, how does our body manage it all? How does it regulate digestion, energy use, even just feeling hungry or full?
It all comes down to intricate feedback circuits. It's a constant conversation involving both the nervous system and the endocrine system, which produces hormones. There's actually a dedicated part of the nervous system within the digestive tract itself called the enteric nervous system. It controls local events like saliva release, stomach churning, and peristalsis. But hormones play a huge role in coordinating the whole process over longer distances. Hormones secreted by the stomach and the duodenum ensure that digestive secretions are only released when they're actually needed.
Can you give an example?
Sure. When food stretches the stomach wall, it triggers the release of the hormone gastrin. Gastrin circulates in the blood, comes back to the stomach, and stimulates the production of more gastric juice. A positive feedback loop, initially. Then, when acidic chyme enters the duodenum releases other hormones, like secretin and CCK. Secretin tells the pancreas to release bicarbonate to neutralize the acid. CCK tells the pancreas to release digestive enzymes, and the gallbladder to release bile.
So the arrival of food triggers the next step automatically.
Exactly. And these hormones, secretin and CCK, also act back on the stomach, inhibiting peristalsis and secretion, especially if the chyme is rich in fats, which take longer to digest. This slows down stomach emptying, giving the small intestine more time to work on the fats. It's beautifully self-regulating.
That's incredible coordination. Okay, what about managing the energy the body actually gets from all this digested food?
Right, that gets into energy allocation and bioenergetics. The energy extracted from nutrients is ultimately converted into ATP, which powers all cellular work, biosynthesis, growth, storage, reproduction, and generates heat in the process. The total energy an animal uses over a given time is its metabolic rate. For endotherms like us, warm-blooded animals, we often measure the basal metabolic rate, or BMR.
What exactly is BMR?
It's the minimum metabolic rate needed just to sustain basic life functions, breathing, heartbeat, cell maintenance when the body is at rest, hasn't eaten recently, and isn't stressed. For humans, BMR averages around 1,600 to 1,800 kilocalories per day for adult males and 1,300 to 1,500 for adult females. To put that in perspective, it's roughly the energy consumption of a 75-watt light bulb running constantly.
Just to stay alive at rest?
Exactly. For ectotherms, cold-blooded animals like reptiles, we measure the standard metabolic rate, SMR, at a specific temperature. And alligators' SMR is much, much lower than ours. And of course, any activity, moving, thinking, digesting dramatically increases metabolic rate above these baseline levels for all animals.
What happens when we take in more energy than we need for our immediate metabolic demands? Where does the excess go?
The body is designed to store excess energy. First, it's stored as glycogen, a complex carbohydrate, primarily in the liver and muscle cells. But these glycogen stores are relatively small and fill up quickly. Once the glycogen depots are full, any additional excess energy is converted and stored as fat in adipose cells. Fat is incredibly energy-rich.
More so than carbs or protein.
Much more so. Fat liberates about twice the energy per gram compared to carbohydrates or protein. This makes adipose tissue a very space-efficient way to store large amounts of energy reserves. Healthy humans can potentially sustain themselves for weeks just using stored fat.
And what about maintaining stable blood sugar levels? That seems like a really critical balancing act, day-to-day, meal-to-meal.
It absolutely is. That's glucose homeostasis, and it's crucial because glucose is a major fuel source for cells, especially brain cells. This balance is tightly regulated primarily by two pancreatic hormones, insulin and glucagon. They have opposing effects.
That's how they work.
Okay, after you eat a carbohydrate-rich meal, your blood glucose level rises. This triggers beta cells in the pancreas to release insulin. Insulin acts on almost all body cells, telling them to take up glucose from the blood. It also signals the liver and muscles to store excess glucose as glycogen, so insulin lowers blood glucose. Then, between meals, when blood glucose starts to drop, alpha cells in the pancreas release glucagon. Glucagon acts mainly on the liver, stimulating it to break down its stored glycogen and release glucose back into the blood. So glucagon raises blood glucose.
So they work together like a thermostat for blood sugar.
That's a great analogy. These opposing actions of insulin and glucagon normally keep blood glucose levels within a fairly narrow, healthy range, typically around 70 to 110 milligrams per 100 milliliters of blood.
Unfortunately, these vital systems can sometimes go wrong, right? Leading to conditions like diabetes.
Indeed, diabetes mellitus is a serious disorder caused by problems with this glucose regulation system. Either there's a deficiency of insulin or the body's cells decrease their response to insulin. In both cases, blood glucose levels rise significantly because cells can't take up enough glucose from the blood. Paradoxically, the cells are starved for glucose even though there's plenty around. They start using fat for fuel instead, which can lead to the buildup of dangerous acidic byproducts called ketones.
And there are different types of diabetes.
Yes. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disorder where the body's own immune system mistakenly attacks and destroys the insulin-producing beta cells in the pancreas. People with type 1 diabetes need daily insulin injections to survive. It usually develops in childhood or adolescence. Type 2 diabetes is much more common, accounting for over 90% of cases. Here, the target cell's muscle, fat, liver cells fail to respond normally to insulin, even though insulin might be present. This is called insulin resistance. It's strongly linked to excess body weight, obesity, and lack of physical activity, and often develops later in life, though we're seeing it increasingly in younger people too. It's a major public health issue, the 7th most common cause of death in the U.S.
Finally, let's talk about how our body regulates something as fundamental as hunger and appetite itself. What drives us to eat in the first place, and what tells us we're full?
The regulation of appetite. It's another really complex feedback system involving hormones interacting with a satiety center in the brain, particularly the hypothalamus. It's not just about an empty stomach. Several hormones act as signals. For instance, ghrelin, a hormone secreted by the stomach wall, triggers feelings of hunger. Its levels rise before meals and fall afterwards. On the flip side, several hormones act to suppress appetite. After a meal, the intestine releases hormones like PYY. Insulin release after eating also signals satiety to the brain. And then there's leptin. Leptin is a hormone produced by adipose tissue by fat cells themselves. The level of leptin in the blood is generally proportional to the amount of body fat. Leptin acts on the brain to suppress appetite and increase energy expenditure. It's thought to be a key long-term regulator of body fat levels.
So fat tissue itself sends signals to the brain about energy stores.
Exactly. It's part of the body's system for maintaining energy balance over the long term. Of course, these systems can be overridden, and dysregulation of these appetite signals is thought to play a role in obesity. Overnourishment leading to obesity is a major global health concern, significantly contributing to the risk of type 2 diabetes, certain cancers, and cardiovascular disease. Understanding these intricate hormonal feedback loops is really crucial if we want to effectively address these challenges.
Wow. Okay, so from the very first bite of a meal, through all that mechanical and chemical breakdown, the incredible absorption surface, the microbial partners, and right down to the intricate hormonal signals controlling energy balance and hunger. It's just crystal clear that animal nutrition is vastly more complex and dynamic than just, eating.
Absolutely.
We've journeyed through this amazing diversity of feeding strategies, the specialized compartments that make digestion possible and safe, and this really delicate hormonal dance that keeps our bodies balanced and alive.
Yeah, this deep dive really does highlight just the elegant solutions that evolution has crafted over millions of years to fulfill an animal's most basic needs. From the way teeth are perfectly shaped for a specific diet to that hidden vital world of our own microbiome that we're only just starting to truly appreciate. It's a profound testament to how deeply biology shapes our daily lives, our health, everything.
And it definitely leaves us with a provocative thought to chew on, doesn't it? As our understanding of the microbiome and all this metabolic regulation continues to explode, what new possibilities might emerge for truly optimizing human health, for tackling nutritional challenges, not just individually, but on a global scale? How will we continue to adapt biologically and culturally to our ever-changing diets and environments? What stands out to you listening right now about this incredible, largely unseen process happening inside you constantly?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of animal nutrition. We really hope you feel a little more well-informed and maybe, just maybe, a lot more curious about the amazing biology happening inside you every single day.